If you define yourself as a victim of the pandemic or a victim of, the political world right now, whatever, you'll stay a victim. You're not your circumstances. Every one of us has an innate greatness within us. You can choose to focus on the circumstances, or you can choose to find your greatness and your essence and your uniqueness and bring it to the world. In fact, our world needs it more than ever for everybody to be expressing their greatness and their uniqueness, and for people not to judge the younger generations, because they are creating new paradigms for success based on that inner journey they're all on at a much younger age than many of us went on it.
Welcome back to Mic'd Up. I'm your host, Mike DeChocho. Today's guest joins us at the perfect time. October is Mental Health Awareness Month, and her work shines a vital light on both the struggles and strengths of today's youth. She's on a mission to help teens and young adults reclaim their worth in the midst of a growing mental health crisis. Drawing from neuroscience, interviews, and her personal story, she reveals how early conditioning and cultural pressures can create limiting beliefs. Yet, through the power of neuroplasticity, she shows how the brain can be rewired for resilience, creativity, and growth. Her latest book reframes young people not as victims, but as pioneers, celebrating their courage, innovation, and the ability to redefine success. With practical tools, inspiring stories, and reminders for parents to lead with empathy and presence, her message is both timely and transformative. Welcome back to the show, author of the brand new book, Born Worthy, my friend, Coach Gail Jones.
Mike, it's great to be back here. And again, just like you said, thank you for that beautiful introduction. But this book is so desperately needed right now in this very moment in our history. I was working on another book, and then when the mental health crisis became so severe for youth, I said, I got to jump onto this book right away, because I didn't want teens and young adults to wire their brains around the negativity of the world's circumstances, and to right away get back to their innate greatness.
Well, I appreciate what you're doing. I know you've been doing this for years. You've had multiple books out. The last time we shared your bounce back from cancer on the podcast. And if anybody is interested in a little bit more of your backstory, we can link that in the show notes too, because they can go back and hear that part of your story. But I love this. I love the idea, born worthy. I mean, it says it right there. It only takes 2 words to really get across what you're looking to do with this movement. It's a beautiful book. I didn't get a chance to finish it yet, but I appreciate you allowing me to preview it. So we got some deep questions I want to get into today. Really, for our audience, myself, selfishly as a parent, I want to pick your brain a little bit on different things I can do as a parent. I think this is a great episode for educators. And obviously anybody that's young going through this. Look, there's things that apply to youth that can really apply to all of us. But we want to make sure it's like anything that becomes problematic, the earlier you can course correct, the better the chances that you're going to have a positive result. So I want everyone to know your website, your social media, the book itself. I got everything linked in the show notes, and it's easy for them to find. So they can go there, they can check out the book and all the resources that you'd like us to make sure they have. Now, diving into your book, I know that it reframes teens and young adults as pioneers. We talked about that word in the intro, rather than victims of this mental health crisis that's crazy right now. Can you elaborate on why you chose that perspective, and how does that actually change the narrative?
Well, first of all, this book is unique because the first half of the book, I interviewed 15 teens and young adults from diverse backgrounds. I was on college campuses, I was in coffee shops, I went into bars, I interviewed them on Zoom. So I really got to the heart of what they're thinking and feeling. Their ages 13 to 27, because that's the youth mental health crisis is defined mainly as that segment. But the first thing I discovered from the diversity, some were high achievers, some grew up in poverty on the streets. One person was bisexual, one was date raped through a social media connection. Another young man I interviewed, his father committed suicide during the pandemic. They each had very transformative stories, how they worked through these difficulties. And also, when they talked about the pandemic in a general way, it changed what they wanted to do. A lot of them before the pandemic said that they had a dream of, the dream that maybe my generation had of having a house in the suburbs, a nice car, all that. The pandemic, for these people I interviewed, it went back to their core values. So we know, like in second half of life, the focus shifts into wanting to do more meaningful work versus, make the drive to make money as much, to build a family and all of that. But what I'm finding is that the younger people want this now. They want to create their meaningful lives now. There was an example of a 26-year-old that I interviewed in the book who had 2 degrees in engineering, chemical engineering, star student, had a dream job, $75,000 signing bonus. He did it for a year. And his mental health was so challenged that he gave it up and he said, I'm going for my bucket list. And he became a bartender.
Wow.
And what he said when I interviewed him at the bar was...
That's how you met him?
I don't see myself
met him
as
and
somebody...
then you shared that and then you interviewed him afterwards?
I walked into the bar and I asked if he'd be interviewed for my book.
That's incredible.
So all these interviews were organic.
Yeah.
So it wasn't done as a social scientist. I did it as a journalist. I started out as a journalist, as you know. And I got them to open up and they just, really tell me what they're really feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And anyways, he said, I don't see myself as a bartender pouring drinks. I see myself as going over to every person at that bar and getting them off their cell phone and talking to them.
Yes.
Because the reason they're at that bar is they're lonely.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't see himself being a bartender the rest of his life, but that experience taught him that he is a people person. He doesn't want to be behind a computer as an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So they're jumping ship earlier when something isn't aligned.
Yeah. And
the other thing that was articulated through the kids I interviewed was that the social media influence is dramatic, as we know. The average teen or young adult spends 9 hours a day on screen time.
Right.
That's missing a great portion of life.
I don't think many adults are that far behind, honestly.
No, I don't think so either. But what they're seeing now is the damage, not just, I could share the story of the young person who was sexually abused through a connection, but they really want to help each other get off of social media. So Brendan, who's in my book, who the bartender, he shared that he doesn't know who he is or who social media wants him to be. That it's very hard to find your uniqueness because you don't know if social media is defining you or if this is really who you are.
Right.
And the girls, especially that I interviewed, just said, get off. You don't stop trying to compete with those images on social media.
I mean, if you think about it, Gail, just to pause for 1 second, and I know we got a slight delay here in our connection, so I apologize if I'm delayed and I'm not trying to interrupt you, but to add and interject. When we grew up, right? I mean, I grew up before social media and with social media, and now we're all living in a world that has it prominent everywhere you go. But, when I went to school, you had, 25, 30 kids in your class that you kind of have your social, comparison with.
Right.
Maybe 300 people in a public school and each, the grade levels and stuff like that, to a couple thousand people within the building. And now you have millions of people and everybody's putting their best self out there. They're putting stuff that's not even 100% truthful. And when you're seeing this from the beginning of your life, because anyone who's 10, 11, 12 right now, they don't know they're going through those teenage years and they did it with an iPhone in their hand, from the beginning of it, most of them. So they're not really competing with people at their middle school or high school. They're quote unquote comparing and competing, as with the entire world. And again, in high school, we went through the day and people got to see us class to class. And afterwards, if you're doing extracurricular activities, if you're in band, if you're on the football team or in drama club, whatever you're doing, they got to experience you. But now it's like, oh, they went on this cool vacation that my family couldn't afford and go on. And they got the newest Jordans and they're posting a close-up shot of them like in this cool pose. And there's a lot of this comparison. So I wanted to interject and say how crazy that is right there. But one other thing I wanted to back up and acknowledge, Gail, is I wanted to commend you for a lot of times books are written and it's theories and ideas from one singular voice, an author. And what I love that you did in this book is you interviewed these people, children, teens, and really heard their story in the journalism point of view that you brought to it was really special, and you did it in a great way. And so you're sharing real stories. This is not a book where someone's standing on a podium saying, I got to tell you about youth today. Right. No, you're not doing that. You're having youth talk to you about youth. And that's why I think this book really connects.
Thanks, Michael. And also, I just want to say that each interview is about 18 hours an interview. So it's not just filling out a survey. Mm-hmm. I interviewed them. And often I chose the people very intuitively, like the bartender. I went up to him at the bar, right? And the coffee shop, the woman who was sexually abused, the young woman, she was sitting outside the coffee shop where I write outside a lot and was giggling with her friend for 4 hours. And I was writing for 4 hours. I finally went up to her and said, you know, it's so nice to see happy young teens. And then she shared her story, and wow. What she's been through was incredible. You had no idea. You were just
like, hey, would you be interested in giving me some feedback? And then she opened up to you right there. That may have been the first, you may have been the first person. Do you know if you were the first person she ever shared that with?
I know she's been in therapy for what happened, and I can share briefly what happened, but which is important about social media. But what's interesting about every child, young teen or young adult that was interviewed, they said as a result of the interview, they felt more worthy because they were seen, heard, validated, and acknowledged just by my listening. That wasn't my intent. But these kids don't feel listened to. They feel like everyone thinks, especially, you know, Gen Z, everyone thinks that, you know, they're lazy or, you know, not involved. When you listen to them, they're extremely wise. Mm-hmm. And you got to remember, they had the social media influence, but they also had the pandemic when they were very isolated. So that isolation forced people to reflect more than you might have reflected in those younger years. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I want to bring up when you said the social media, but the young adults, so this is another issue. When they graduate, the ones that graduate from college and then go in the workforce, a lot of them have been working remotely, right? So they're rolling out of bed, going to their computer. They have no social connection. Mm-hmm. And so what they need more now from the interviews I've had with them is when they join a new company, they need to be mentored more. They don't see another human being. There's nobody giving them feedback. You're doing it right. You're doing it wrong. This is how you can improve.
Groups, right? Within the role. That would be a great idea to implement.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I think a lot of the remote workers feel very isolated, and that can lead to depression.
Well, off camera, you and I were talking about this, you know, personal life. I was talking about, hey, I work from home most of the time, and it can be very isolating. I had an episode recently where I talked to another guest about that exact topic, and you said, hey, I recommend, you know, you mentioned yoga. I'm doing pickleball. There's so many, I could do both, right? And then I mentioned getting back into the community through my church and different things. So yeah, I reflect on that because it's something important for me, but I'm saying it really for our audience tuning in. Like, there's a lot of people working remotely, and maybe you're in an office where it's cubicle style and the only interaction you have is at the water cooler, and that's not even really good banter most of the time anyways. It's kind of, you know, corporate talk, if you will. So important to get involved. Anybody listening right now, whether you're work at home, an entrepreneur, or a W-2, it doesn't matter. Community is important.
So I want to go back just for a second, how you talked how they're becoming pioneers, and you asked me that question. Yeah. So, for example, the young woman who's 19, who was, and some of the people, obviously, their names were changed in the story, in the book. But so she was a very brilliant young woman. She was a classic pianist, you know, very high achiever. But during the pandemic, when she was really isolated, so they were all getting on social media and comparing their boyfriends to each other. So the boyfriend would get on and make it look like he's the best boyfriend. And then the other one would try to look as good as that other boyfriend on social media. So what happened is online, she looked like she had the greatest relationship. She's a high achiever, doing great in school. But behind closed doors, behind screen time, off screen time, she was being abused. And she didn't even understand the extent of it because she was so isolated and then so ashamed because she had no one to talk to.
Was it her boyfriend that was?
Talk about pioneer.
Her boyfriend was doing that?
Yes. But they look like the beautiful couple on social media, right? And behind the screen, nobody knew, and she couldn't talk about it to anybody. But through her, so she has PTSD, and I talk about that. There's a sidebar in my book on PTSD. The sidebars for every issue they come up with to give them tips. So in addition to the story. So after each teen or young adult story, I coach them on that issue, and then I give statements to help rewire their brain. That's based on the neuroscience. But just back to her. So she became a pioneer, and she was in college to be a lawyer, and now she's going to be a therapist. And so they're redefining what they thought they wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And then the other example of the 19-year-old, now 20, whose father committed suicide during the pandemic. He was going to be a software engineer. And after his father died, he decided that doesn't really make his heart sing. So he went back to his memories with his father, who was his best friend as a little boy, and then his grandfather, and they loved cars. So he ended up not going into software engineering and going to the race car school mm-hmm. and learning to work in the pit. And he loves it, and he's so happy. But he also, in sharing his story, shares how grief transformed him, because grief is a second part-time job. So you're a college student, then you have to grieve the death of your father, and then suicide has a lot of shame around it. Yeah. So, but how they're transforming their lives as a result of whatever crisis they encountered isn't bad. They're just coming to their natural essence, their natural gifts much earlier, and they're not buying into the external ways we get validated for success. Mm-hmm. They're really internally driven, which is really profound. And I found that with all of them, that they're a lot more internally driven than, I think earlier generations were.
Yeah. How many people, you said 15 people are interviewed in the book that you included, but did you do you had to do more than that and kind of choose the stories that you...
I did some more than that, but I focused on 15 mainly because of the diversity.
Sure.
I wanted to make sure...
I mean, these sound like everyone has their own extremely strong story. I mean, you talked about the girl at Starbucks that had a really deep story. This young boy, now becoming a man, and his father, had committed suicide. He's dealing with grief and shame. I mean, these are really thick, deep, impactful, meaningful, really heartfelt and difficult stories for anybody to deal with, especially youth to deal with. And it sounds like that was intentional, because this is a book about healing, right? So this is how you're going to learn.
Well, there were people that were doing very well, and they followed a track, and they're on it, and went to college, and they did the regular path. Mm-hmm. But also when I mixed it up. And somebody like that followed their dreams, their goals, and then went to college, and now was in their first job and really thriving. But what this person taught us about was living from a growth mindset. And he ended up very successful, but also using the pandemic and the other challenges as a way to grow instead of a way to become a victim. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important. And I don't want to underestimate the challenges the teens and young adults have faced. I write a letter to them in the beginning of my book. I never faced any of that. I had a schizophrenic mom, and even that wasn't as hard as some of the things they're facing. But I do understand mental illness at a very deep level from that experience. But I just really admire them for their tenacity to recreate their lives now. And the other common theme that came up, no matter what background they came from, they weren't driven by wealth. Mm-hmm. They weren't driven by money. And they were before the pandemic. And as a result of the pandemic, a lot of them just really wanted a really great relationship. That was a lot. They talked about wanting a relationship more than they wanted money. And I think because they were all so lonely during the pandemic.
It was more the fulfillment that they were after than the dollar signs they were after. And,
right.
And that's a topic we talk about on the show a lot, right? A lot of successful people I've interviewed mm-hmm. didn't feel fulfilled when they were financially successful. It was when they were doing something in the world that lit up their heart, that, there was financial gain that came from it, but it was really like yourself, someone who's making, really doing some monumental change in the world that fuels you because you feel you're on purpose, and it feels good knowing you're doing the right thing. Now, of course, we want your book to sell, and there can be gain from that, and you get paid to be, people pay you as a coach and different things. That's all well, and that's a beautiful thing. But what lights you up and gets you out of bed in the morning is stuff like what we're talking about right here. And I just want to make a quick
Right.
statement on the show. I've never made this statement before, is I do agree. I'm 39 years old. So, a lot of the people we're talking about are younger than me, but also I'm not that far removed from my 20s or even my teenage years. And so I experience it too. And I remember being, anywhere from 10 to 19 years old, where it's like your generation kids. And it was like, always the older generation at that time, they'd be like, how old are you? And you're 15 at your first job. Well, the way we used to do it in your generation, and it was like we were getting finger pointed, like, because we had computers and stuff, right? So I know a little bit of how that feels, but I don't totally understand how someone who's,
Right.
grown up in this latest generation feels completely. Plus, I had to deal with the pandemic and the losing a few school years. What I want to say is I think it is unjust that there's this majority feel that you kind of have a feeling about it, and that the world has, that this younger generation is less than because of certain things that are out of their control. And from what you're saying and from what I've experienced, when I was at a summit recently, I told you a little bit off camera about a really cool event I went to.
Sure.
The founder of that company stopped the whole thing that was going on and said, everybody follow this young kid on Instagram. He's a sales professional who's teaching ways on how to close. I mean, the kid, I don't remember his name, and that's not the point. The point is he was probably 20 years old, and everybody in this room that I was in, 75 business professionals, business owners, actually, franchisees, were all pulled out their phone, excited, and went to his Instagram to follow this young kid's advice. And they all did it with excitement. And there was no, he's 20. What would he know? How can he teach me? I've been doing this business for 20 years. I'm going to learn. So one thing I'm going to get off my soapbox here, but what I wanted to deliver is thank you, Gail, for reminding me, and hopefully it's absorbing with our audience, that our young generation is special and they bring a lot to the table that my generation and older generations don't have, because we have different perspectives and we have different experiences. And it's a beautiful thing that each generation has its own thing. I suggest the youngest generation dive into the olders, and the older generations appreciate the younger. I think we can all learn from each other.
Right. So I love that how you stress the value, and I want to, it was so many things around that. They gave me the interviews for the book because they wanted to help each other. I think that's really important. Mm-hmm. The 27-year-olds wanted to make sure the 13-year-olds knew what they learned. And the 13-year-olds wanted to help other students. But this is really key. And the reason, I was so driven to get this book out in 15 months record time, a lot of obstacle after obstacle. And I just said, this can't wait 2 to 4 years. They need it now. So the number one question I ask an executive client, as an executive coach for many years, still do some of that. But outwardly, they look really successful. But the first question I ask them, in fact, a lot of my clients, is, what was your unmet need as a child? When you ask that question, it transforms their healing journey, because if you're trying to solve that unmet need by working harder, making more money, doing more, you'll still come up empty. So my goal with this book was to help these kids know their worthiness right away. And what was your unmet need as a child? Well, let's ask them that so they get it in their teens and young adult years, so that need gets met, so they don't spend their whole life striving to fix something that we can address right now.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think that's really important to stress, yes, they have a lot of value, and to acknowledge them, but I also do think they need our empathy. The other thing they said is, on top of the identity issues of becoming, a young adult and figuring out who you are, we did have a pandemic. We did have historic circumstances, and nobody's giving us empathy that in addition to what you dealt with growing up, we also have these other things. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really important that we give the young people empathy, and they have been through a lot. And so have the parents. Nobody prepared anybody for any of this. So there were external factors. Mm-hmm. But then I go to my next point, and this is key to my book and key to everything I teach, is we are not our circumstances and we are not our past. And so what we know from neuroscience is that, and every time you tell your story of your past, I could say I'm a breast cancer survivor. I don't even like those words, okay?
Right.
Or I'm a child of a schizophrenic. That's important because it shows my healing journey, but I don't identify with that. That was a part that gave me the depth and the substance of who I am, my healing journey.
Mm-hmm. It's
But
also things
you
that
need
you
to tell
couldn't
yourself a
control, right? Like the fact that you had a parent that had schizophrenia, that wasn't a choice that you could make.
Right.
Having cancer, that wasn't a choice that you were able to make. So like how having that define you puts you in a 0% chance of having any weight on that, right? It's what you do, how you respond to it, which is a beautiful part of your story.
Right.
Yeah.
So back to the kid, thank you, Mike, but back to the teens and young adults. If you define yourself as a victim of the pandemic or a victim of, the political world right now, whatever, you'll stay a victim.
Mm-hmm.
You're not your circumstances. Every one of us has an innate greatness within us. You can choose to focus on the circumstances, or you can choose to find your greatness and your essence and your uniqueness and bring it to the world. In fact, our world needs it more than ever for everybody to be expressing their greatness and their uniqueness. And for people not to judge the younger generations, because they are creating new paradigms for success based on that inner journey they're all on at a much younger age than many of us went on it.
Mm-hmm. So true. And I'd like to back us up just a little bit, because I know in the book you emphasize that there's a huge role that early life conditioning plays in shaping subconscious beliefs. So some of the things we talked about
Right.
Do stem from the subconscious. So how can parents like myself or educators help young people overcome limiting beliefs that they might not even realize they have?
That's a great question. So first of all, a sense of we are all born worthy. That's the name of the book, Born Worthy. We're all born worthy. But it gets conditioned out of us by how people present themselves. So the way we know we're worthy, we're seen, heard, validated, acknowledged for who we are, not what we do. So there has been a generation of parents that, and I know you interviewed Doug Bolton at one point.
And thank you for the connection.
You're welcome, but puts the pressure on their kids to perform. Often that pressure is so the parent looks good. Oh, my child is the star in the play or the best athlete. It's okay to have excellence in your sports and your activities. But if you're not seeing the child for who they are, not just what they do, they won't truly feel worthy, because worthiness is not based on performance. Mm-hmm. Self-esteem is based more on condition, how someone performs, what they do. So what I would encourage, and just like the kids told me when I interviewed for the book, you have to lovingly witness your kids, and you witness them in, I notice you're so kind to your brother or sister, or, you're really funny. You have a gift at making people laugh, or I love your generosity. Notice those parts of your child's essence daily. Not just did you get straight A's? Did you make the team? Like that's all
not the result
a part of their life.
A school or scholastic or academic or athletic program, but them. What makes them them? And that's a great reminder.
And the other thing I would remind parents, educators don't have a lot of control over this. In fact, we've lost a lot of recess. We've lost a lot of recess in the schools and things, but encourage downtime. Downtime is our creative time. Downtime is how we connect to our soul. It's how we connect spiritually, mentally. It's okay not to overschedule your kids. It's okay for them to go out, and it's done less these days, but playing the yard for 3 hours is more important than being on every team and traveling everywhere. Like, they don't need that pressure. They need time to find themselves, to know themselves. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I say is you can take all the seminars in the world, you can read all the books in the world, including mine, but what really makes somebody feel valued is your presence. Look them in the eye. If you have a young child, get down on your knees, get at their level, listen to them, and really hear them and feedback without always advising. Mm-hmm. Let them articulate their voice.
That's so good. That's a great reminder for everybody, myself included. And something I've been trying to do more recently is literally scheduling time. It's creative time. The way I look at it is when you're in go mode as a parent, as a business person, whatever your career is, you're busy. You have your 9 to 5, if you're working 12
Right.
to 12, whatever your hours are, you are extremely busy. But to make sure that your day does have, just as important as it is to have dinner time, or, you know, you got to drive to wherever you're going. So there's a moment in the day when you're doing that activity, you need to schedule, just as important as all of that, some time, 15, 20, 30, maybe longer, of this downtime you're
Right.
talking about. Because if you don't, where is your creativity going to come from? Where is your ability to hear what's going on inside your heart? And how are you going to ever reflect if you don't allow yourself to ever have a moment? You know, we need that moment. And
Right.
it's harder
Right.
than ever because there are screens everywhere. And I got 2 of them in front of me right here as we
Right.
do this interview. But
Right. Right.
that's a really good thing. So do you just recommend people need to schedule it in, or it doesn't happen? Or are there different ways that you know, how have you done
I
that
just
for
recommend
yourself?
that well, first of all, I walk every day.
Yeah.
I try to walk at least 3 to 5 miles a day. That's my quiet time. That's my creative time. You know, I come up with the statements I'm going to give to the next client that are intuitively guided to them. I come up with the next sentence or the next chapter from my book. I think it's a mindset that being
Mm-hmm.
is as important as doing, and sometimes even more important.
Yeah.
You can't run on empty. So I think doing that, I do water aerobics every morning, and I find being in the water very calming. So I make sure. And here's another thing: whether it's the teen, the educator, the parent, or whatever, I believe that you should do something first thing in the morning that gives you joy.
Mm-hmm.
If you wait till the end of the day, like the water aerobics, I never used to be in a pool at 8 a.m., but
Sure.
it's just so much fun. I laugh through the whole thing. That's more important to me than writing the next chapter.
Yeah.
I don't ever give that up.
That's awesome.
Shifting the priorities is really important.
I like that idea. Like right in the
and then
morning, you're doing something you love. So now you're teaching your body that I'm important, I'm worthy of happiness, and I'm going to
Right.
tell myself I want to do it. When I go to bed, it's intentional. I'm going to wake up and have something fun to look forward to. Now you do it. Now
Right.
you actually do the activity, and you're teaching yourself I'm important because I held a meeting with myself to go to water aerobics or whatever you're doing. That 3-mile walk.
Absolutely.
And like you're teaching yourself,
Right.
this is important, not always what's the first text message, email, you know, in
Right.
business, a lot of times it's what's the first fire I'm going to put out in the day. Like have that appointment with yourself.
So
that's awesome.
there are two, I love how you said, so the two statements I would say that I am worthy of being a priority and I am worthy of self-care.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people in the helping professions, and I know you and I have talked about this before, but we give to others at the expense of ourselves. We're so used to nurturing. And if you can't receive, you won't allow in more money. You won't allow in healthy relationships. So I am worthy of receiving. And if you tell yourself you're worthy of receiving, you better be sure you can give to yourself as well. Investing in yourself is investing in the care of others, because then you come to them in fullness.
That's so good. Something that caught my eye in the book as well, a little bit different than what we've talked on the show with multiple guests, affirmations, daily affirmations. I've been listening to them. I listen to them a lot in the shower and I say them out loud. And I've even done it when Isabel's been with me. I've intentionally did it with the volume high so she can hear me doing daily affirmations. And it's something that it's like,
excellent.
She doesn't quite get it. And she kind of was like laughing about it. But I think as I continue to do it and show her why it's important and what it means to me, again, it's not going to her saying you have to do this too. It's she's going to understand what it can do for me. And then maybe she'll decide to start doing affirmations as well. But affirmations are important, but something that you call them is allowing statements, creating allowing statements as an alternative to affirmations. And so how do they actually help younger people shift their mindset? How is it different?
Okay. So the first thing I want to stress is whether you're using an affirmation or allowing statements, I like allowing statements more at the beginning, and I'll explain that in a second, is the way we rewire our brain for worthiness is through repetition. So it's not hard, it's boring. So I give people statements to say first 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes before they go to bed at night. That's the time when you wake up, you can let in new ideas. And when you go to bed at night, you're downloading the software into the brain, right, of what you're going to say. But the reason I like allowing statements is they allow for the new belief to form without resistance. So, for example, I'll give the example of the young girl in my book who has PTSD. If I said, I am healed from PTSD, and she knows she's at the beginning of her journey, she's really resistant to knowing she can ever get over post-traumatic stress syndrome, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's not going to believe it, so she's met with resistance. If you say, I allow myself to be healed from PTSD, you create the bridge in the new neural pathway in the brain for it to accept that possibility. And the other reason I love about that is you don't have to do it yourself. When we say, I am, it's I, me, my ego will do this. If I allow, the whole universe can support me. I can find the right people that know the latest advances on PTSD healing. I can find a community that really supports and loves me through this healing journey. So I find allowing is much broader. And then as you get closer to really believing the belief and you want to keep integrating it, yes, I am. And I know spiritually, a lot of people say I am, like I'm a divine being of God or whatever. That's really important. But I'm talking about intentional manifestation based on what you really want in that moment. I'm not talking about a huge spiritual connection right now, using the I am that way. The example of the boy who lost his father through suicide. Instead of saying, I'm over this, I allow myself to gently grieve the loss of my father. So you're giving yourself permission to go through the grief process without judgment, without wondering where you are. And it's just a more loving, compassionate way to instill new beliefs.
It seems so rudimentary or elementary, like obviously we need to allow ourselves, but when you really say it, it puts it in a different light. Like it really lets you sit with it and reflect on it more. Right? Is that what it is? It's allowing.
Yes.
You're ready for receiving, opposed to, something might come my way. But again, if you're too busy to reflect or have that moment to think about it, or to even have these allowing statements, and if you're not doing that, then the same thing's going to happen over and over again. You're going to get the same results, right? And we call that insanity. And if we really do want to get better, we have to spend time with ourselves, doing the allowing statements, doing the affirmations, and connecting with our worthiness.
And I think it's
reading your book.
I think it's
step
the juice,
one, reading Gail's book.
Well, I think it's the juice of the book, because I give you the statements to say. So if you don't know how to create them, each of the children there. And each of the teens and young adults, each one ends with the statements. But then at the back of the book, I have a whole tool chest for parents, educators, teens, young adults. They can use all those tools. And I have generic statements for everybody to use that help with health, finance, relationship. So it hits all the markets.
This is a real resource. It's not just an educational book about youth and about overcoming bullying and different things that children are dealing with and teens are dealing with, but it's a real resource. It's a guide. Now, I have to ask you, did those people that you've interviewed, it sounds like you really connected with them and they really appreciated you. Did you are you going to send them like a copy of the book, and are they excited that they're in it? Again, their names are changed, so they don't have to worry about that. But do they feel good? Like they're on purpose, right? Because now their story can help another child out, right?
Right. A lot of them have everybody. There's a first name for everybody. There's a couple that their first names have been changed. Yes, they're very excited about. They'll get a signed copy of the book from me. Absolutely. And my dream is to. I live in Exeter.
Forget how many books are sold, Gail. Like, what an amazing thing! Like, even if you didn't even sell the book, and you just had those experiences with those 15 kids, do you know how amazing that is? What you just did right there. Like, I know you didn't do it for that reason, but I'm like so excited.
I'm really glad you just said that,
15 people are, the rest of their life is going to be positively impacted by the couple hours you gave them. And just imagine if everybody did that with their nephew, with their son and daughter, with their, someone that maybe they see their child's best friend doesn't have a father figure or something. So they spend a little time playing ball and include their kid's best friend to come over, you play ball. And like, they can give them a little bit of that fatherly love, like whatever it is. It took you a couple hours, and you're going to really put a positive impact in all 15 plus people you interviewed.
Mike, I love what you said about that too, because when I talk to the allowing statements,
Yeah.
a lot of people say, I allow myself to be a best-selling author, right? I don't use that because you could be a best-selling author and not make any money. A lot of best-selling authors, have that moment in the sun there, and a lot of them make it. But I allow myself to be a wealthy author. And the reason I use the word wealthy author is, first of all, I don't like the poverty consciousness of those that are creative types. Okay, I'm going to live a creative life, so I'm not going to have any money. I don't want that to be a belief of my life. But also, I can serve more people if I don't have to think about money.
Mm-hmm.
And I can go and like my approach to marketing this book. And I used to be a PR exec, as you know. I know how to do. I've been on national TV, national radio, global plug, all of that. It's great for building your credentials when you're starting out. But I'd be very happy to go to local sports teams, to go to high schools, to do grassroots of just reaching the kids, looking in their eyes and talking to them, looking in the eyes and talking to their parents. It's a mission-driven life,
Mm-hmm.
and you do need money to do that. But I'm not driven by the external success of being on a stage and, oh wow, here's Coach Gail Jones teaching you all this. When I see my vision of the book and it taking off, I see myself standing on a stage and bringing a young person up with me, or a teacher or an educator, and live coaching.
Yeah.
And like, what do you need in this moment? So I see it much more interactive and much more meaningful.
Here's how I look at it. The girl at Starbucks, let's take one isolated situation, 4 hours with her friends, couple hours with you, really opened up to you, and you showed her empathy and just listened, and you didn't listen to reply, you listened to understand and then give assistance or whatever that looked like. And so she felt worthy after talking to you. That was one isolated situation. Now you're in a room with hundreds of kids or thousands of people, and parents included. And now you're planting seeds that those other conversations can happen, because look, you're human. You're not able to have 1,000 conversations individually there, but you're planting seeds like Johnny Appleseed, Gail Appleseed over here, planting all these beautiful seeds within the family and the school and the education system. And so now these things can happen and be fruit from your labor. But again, you're not out here for the financial side of it. I want to just finish the last point of what I meant to say there is, look, money is important because it gives you access. If you want to do more great things on this planet, you can do more great things if you have more money than if you don't have more money. So when people are absorbed with what money can give you from a things side of it, like more cars, more this or that, or the more, when it's life experiences with positive, and you know what, nothing wrong with that. If someone actually gets true happiness because they're a car enthusiast and the Lamborghini means something to them, I am happy about that. But what I want to say is, like, there's people, like you said, the starving artist mentality of, this can't be great art if I get paid for it, or something weird about that. Like when I was in a band, it was the same thing. Like, we don't want to be sellouts. I'm like, I don't look at it that way. I want to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You know why I want to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Because if our music transformed so many lives, because people enjoyed it to the point where we got to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that just means that more people love our music. And my drum parts were experienced in a way that it made them happy. And so why would I want 12 people to be happy if I can have the maximum happy? So that's how I look at money. Like the more you can do good with it, the better. So that's my third soapbox moment in this episode. I'm just gonna.
Okay. All right. Well, the other thing we got to remember is there's a waiting list to see a mental health counselor in a lot of communities, like a year waiting list. So how do we fix that right there? That's a big problem. Do we need more people to study? What you can do is but also, I think mental health counseling is really great. But I think being able to add the neuroscience component to it, yes, we know you've been through drama. I respect it. I know what it took to heal my own. But how do you get them to think about the new story? We can't keep on focusing on the old story. What is the new story? What is your greatness? Like, that's a whole new skill set using neuroscience to bring these kids forward. Yeah. One part of it.
We need more experts,
the other part of it is
Gail,
in the
right?
book.
We need more experts to be able to.
No, so what I said, so in the book, the second half of the book, or even after the kids' stories. So like when the young woman with the PTSD, I interviewed a PTS expert when kids, the common theme was none of them believe they're ever going to have the money to own a home again, own a home like we did because of, whatever's happening in the economy right now. So I interviewed a financial expert and exactly told kids, that expert told them how to save and how to build a financial mindset. And what he did brilliantly in the book is he did it. If you're going to have a creative lifestyle, this is one path to go down. You're not going to have the same wealth, material wealth, but this is what you'll get. He had both. He was in the music world, traveled 250 days a year, had an amazing life. Then he got married and focused on his family. But then he gives the path of the person that wants the corporate career and wants to be in that lifestyle, or, the more materialistic driven, which is fine. So he gives the option and he tells you what choices you're making. So I interviewed him, but also to help people feel calm about a way they can build a financial mindset.
Was that in this book?
I interviewed Dr. Gary Sell. Yes, it's in this book. So it's in between the kid stories. And on relationship, okay, I'm certified in relationship coaching, as you know. So I know the skills of building a secure relationship. Why aren't we teaching kids this, 16, 18, 22, 26? So Dr. Gary Sellier, who I trained with, he's in the book. I have a whole thing on what the 4 key components are of a secure relationship. So yes, we know the 20s are a time of experimenting and dating different people. But why don't you learn what the green flags are right away instead of through 20 relationships later or 10 bad dates, so that you know what feelings to look for in a secure relationship?
Yeah, I'd always prefer to have a roadmap before I went somewhere than to hope for the best, right? So talked about this many times on the show. People who tune in often are going to know what I'm about to say. GPS, right? Before we had GPS, we had MapQuest. We had to print the paper. You'd have stapled notes on how to get somewhere. Prior to MapQuest, Isabel asked me this in the car the other day. She's like, how do people get around without phones? I'm like, I really don't know. You'd go to the gas station and you'd say, I'm trying to get to 123 Main Street in this next town over. And you'd hope that someone knew where you were talking about. And I really don't know. Gail, maybe you can answer that one. But what I'll say is, like you just said, you're using the book as a way to be a roadmap through stories, through interviews, and it allow people to, so you don't have to have the bumps and bruises that the first person did, right?
So I think there are 3 key things to know about this. In the book, the kids are the experts. We're listening to them. We're hearing what this next generation really is feeling and believing as a result of the pandemic, as a result of the world circumstances, as a result of, quote unquote, the mental health crisis that they endured, right? I also have experts in the book on health, relationship, and money. So that's in the book. There's a tool chest that can teach anybody who picks this up how to rewire their brain for worthiness, which takes at least 45 to 63 days. It's a daily repetitive practice. And if you commit to it, you will see change. There's an example in the book of a college student I coached through the pandemic in her life now, and how living from that worthiness that I taught her in 6 weeks, not years of counseling, that what her life looks like now and the choices she made as a result of knowing she was worthy. When I coached her through the pandemic, she was in a very trying relationship, a very unhealthy relationship. She was feeling very isolated and scared. She was very reclusive. Then she became a campus leader, and now she's in her dream career. So I have that kind of example there. But I think it's really important to know, and this is the whole purpose of the book, the power is within us. It's not what's happening in the world. And this brings you in to heal yourself and to heal in community. You have a community of support there through the tools in the book and the experts I share with. And also, I've been a coach for 25 years. You're getting executive level coaching to teens and young adults. So I know I was going to say, so the woman who took on my job to edit the book, she said, when she read through the first several chapters, she said, you're giving them what we all wanted, but wasn't available to us when we were growing up. And that was my dream. Why are we waiting till people 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 to come to coaching? Why don't you give it to them now so they have the foundation to prosper from a foundation of worthiness early on?
It's like you're giving them the key to more doors that they can walk through in life, opposed to having them hit their head against the wall and try to figure out how to get through the wall. Like, go through the door that's opened easily, right? And I've used that analogy on the show a bunch too. But, you know, there was a question earlier in the episode. You said when you ask young people, could be children, teens, what was one thing you wish you had when you were younger that you feel you didn't have? You positioned it way better than that. What was the question?
What was, to executive clients, I would say, what was your unmet need as a child?
Okay, thank you.
So to the teens,
what was your unmet need as a child? I'm reflecting on that as immediately after I get off this interview. I'm going to think about that. I'm going to think about that a lot. And you just mentioned that someone said, hey, looking through what your book and what you're really doing here with your clients, helping people find that unmet need, it's helping that person find it. Well, again, same thing. If someone would have asked that person the question a long time ago, they'd be so much further ahead. Like you said, you don't have to wait until you're
because
older.
they wouldn't look for externals to define them.
Right.
Like there's nothing wrong with being a rock star and a CEO and all of that if you're doing it because that's what you're meant to do. But if you're doing it to overcompensate for not getting that need met as a child, you'll never be fulfilled.
You and I talked about someone, a mutual person we know off camera, and we see them. Right. We've interacted with this person and we know that something's going on, that they need to ask themselves that question, you know? This is a very real thing. And I just want to say, you know, when
I see the greatness in every person before me, when a client comes and, you know, they're in trauma, drama, whatever, they might feel bad about themselves or shameful. I always see them in the highest version of themselves. When I was interviewing these kids and they were talking about the trauma, dramas they faced, or even all the successes, I saw their soul. I saw like the kindness and the depth of them, and even some of the despair through the challenges they've been through. But I always saw them in their greatness and their potential to contribute to this world through their uniqueness, not through conditioning of who they should be.
Yeah, that's incredible. And you know, it's funny, towards the end of every episode, a question that I've asked on the show over and over again, and maybe I don't remember if I asked it to you last time or not, but I ask our guests, because a lot of times we have people who are high performers, achievers, business owners. I've had athletes on and people like yourself that are just great at what they do. Said, how do you define greatness? So I was going to actually, instead of ask you that, I was going to have you, I prepared it a little bit different for you. I'd like you to redefine, right? A redefined definition of worthiness and success, because as you mentioned in the book, the youth today, they're with how they see worthiness and success is different than kind of how we thought. So I'd like you to define that in your own words. But because you talked about greatness 3 or 4 times already, I do want to hear your definition of greatness first.
Okay. So I see living a worthy life. Living from your worthiness is living an authentic life, being your true self. You know, when I stepped off the career as a high-tech PR exec, making mega bucks, all of that, and led a more creative life, there are a lot of people that did not support that decision. Okay. I know in my heart, I live the creative life. But again, I'm redefining what the creative life looks like, right? It's not the starving artist, because I refuse to be that. Okay. But I think the greatness is we are born worthy, like I say in the book. So the journey is finding that greatness, what makes your heart sing. So it's very interesting. A lot of times I'll ask my adult clients, and this will be good for the teens and young adults too, is what did you love to do as a child, ages 5 to 10? That's a key to what makes your heart sing, right?
Yes.
So when I was 6 years old, this is in my book, but when I was 6 years old, in first grade, I would come home from school. The minute I got home from school, and I'd run up to my bedroom and I'd start teaching my make-believe students. I always wanted to be a teacher. Yeah. I see myself as a teacher with this book, like taking all these skills and teaching. I want to share everything I've learned in 40 years of healing my life and in 25 years of coaching. I want that in a book. Here, you have it now. So the greatness is living your authentic self and knowing that we all have a unique gift to bring to this world. And you find that gift. Don't ask to have somebody else tell you what it is. You find that gift. And again, the hints are when you're 5 to 10 years old, what'd you love to do? So Mike, what did you love to do when you were 5 to 10 years old?
Man, I loved, I got into music when I was right around 10 years old, 10, 11, I started drumming. Right. Previous to that, my brother and I used to create, before we called it content. I've told this story before before the word content was really a thing, we would take my mom and dad, our parents' shoulder camera. I remember the camcorders from the 80s that actually had the VHS tape like built right into it. And we would record, we'd write screenplays, and we would cast our friends in the neighborhood into our own movies, and we would reenact. We did the Three Stooges, we did Mr. Bean, and we called it Mr. Peanut. We were very much plagiarized a lot of our favorite comedy, but we did create some of our own original ideas too. But the idea was we had so much fun creating and getting out, playing outside in a different way. I played a little bit football out with my friends and stuff. We played a lot of street ball and stuff like that. But after school, we were creating, and I was 8, 9, 10 years old, writing screenplays and running around with the camera. I was on camera a lot. And then, but I'll say one thing real quick, how it translated into what I'm doing now is it was my first experience with editing, where I took one VCR and another, and remember how you would record from one tape to the next as you'd press play, right? And you'd have this one on like pause and record, and then you would take it off, and then you would record it. So whatever's on one, and that's how we would edit. We would pause it whenever there was a mistake and then re-record it. So that's how we did editing before we had computers or anything. And then we did get our first computer gifted from my uncle that allowed us to do a little bit more with it. And but that always.
And now look what you're doing.
I know we're editing videos, but what we're doing a little different. If you asked me when I was 10, I thought I would have been like the next Steven Spielberg and do more storytelling through film. And that is still something I want to get back to and do that at some point. I have participated the last 2 years in the 48-hour film festival. I produced a film with a
congratulations.
I'm taking very little credit for it. This thing was written, directed. It was with or without me, it would have been a fantastic film. I'm glad I was part of it, but very tiny little stamp from me coming from it. And that's going to be, we have an award ceremony coming up in October. So we'll see how we place within that. But
congratulations.
Thank you. We did not do it for that. We did it because we wanted to put a beautiful film together and do it in 2 days. But my point is, thank you for asking me that question and allowing me to share a little bit about myself. I'm getting back to some of those roots, right? Doing the 48-hour film festival allows that little 8-year-old kid to come out of me and be excited and happy again. The other thing is, one thing, when I went through my divorce at 31 years old, I was successful in business up to that point in my life. I was a store manager. I had a couple of years in sales, and I was doing well. I was supporting the family. Isabel was born, but I wasn't fulfilled. And when I started Social Chameleon, and really before it was a podcast agency, it was more of a media and marketing, kind of helping people with video and content. And I was figuring that all out as I went, obviously, but I was trying to get back to that little 8-year-old kid. And how could I have that fun, but also get compensated for it? Like you're saying, don't be this starving street artist, like make beautiful art and get compensated. And so I was trying to figure that out, and podcasting found me, sucked me in and said, nice. I felt this heart tug. Like, this is how I can take the creation of content, video editing, audio editing, my experience in that, most of it self-taught. I did go to school for media production at Buff State. And I tied it all back together, and now I feel fulfilled because doing my show and producing other shows that have a similar, are aligned with, a similar idea, is to get content and information and thoughts and conversations out into the world that can inspire people to be brave and bold in pursuit of their own dreams. Having you on the show is 1,000% doing that, if not more. And that's why I love having people like you on, but that's why I also love producing podcasts, is because there's more great information getting out into the world that can do good.
Right.
So thank you for letting me reconnect.
So what I would say, based on your story, what you just shared, what I would say on the greatness piece that you asked me the question and you just said yours, honor those nudges within. Mm-hmm. I knew that I had to teach teens and young adults worthiness. That's been a nudge for me for a long time. When the youth mental health crisis came, I stopped everything and did it. Okay. And it was a nudge. Honor the nudges. That's what I would tell people. And my dream for this book is to create a movement to get kids dreaming again, from their greatness, not from the circumstances of the world. I would love to create a movement of dreaming again from your greatness.
Mic drop moment right there, Gail. You're doing it. It's not, I want to create a mission. You're doing this. You're on mission right now. It's funny. I looked down at my computer and the word that I just connected with, my eyes looked at the word mission as you said that. So we're connected here.
It's a mission-driven book.
This was an incredible time, an interview. We're going to do one thing and I will let you run. I got to pay the bills real quick. So what we're going to do is give a shout out to our sponsor. No surprise who our prime sponsor is. Social Chameleon. You can visit socialchameleon.us. You press record. We handle the rest. It is podcasting done for you. That's who's producing our podcasts, obviously. And we produce many shows. Socialchameleon.us. You press record. We handle the rest. We're recording this thanks to our affiliate over at riverside.fm. The reason I use them is for high quality audio and video. They're way better than a lot of the other companies that we've used in the past. And they just make doing this so much easier, doing this remotely. Riverside.fm. If you're interested in podcasting or creating content virtually, it's a great resource and tool. And the way that we get this episode up on, Apple, Spotify, and all your favorite podcast apps is through libsyn.com. And that's LIBSYN.com. They've been around for 15 plus years, great service, really don't need their customer service often, but when we do, they've been fantastic. And we don't have to worry about our episodes showing up or not showing up because they do such a great job at libsyn.com. So you answered my question about greatness. You talked about redefining success and worthiness. Is there anything that when you woke up today, you knew you were coming on the show, was there something you felt in your heart like, hey, I want to get this out. I'm mic'd up and I hope that it comes up in conversation. Is there anything you felt in your heart you want to get out?
You are worthy of living your most amazing life. You are absolutely worthy of it. And you are worthy to receive the abundance of this universe. Keep your heart open to it.
Amen. So well said. A lot of really great sound bites in this episode, Gail. And
thanks.
As I alluded to in the beginning of the conversation, yes, we're talking about youth. We're talking about teens. We're talking about adults. Everybody can really benefit, I think, I know from your book, but I think from our conversation, because you're somewhere on the spectrum of you're younger, you're middle, you're parenting. You could be a leader, a business leader. Everything we talked about students applies to the workforce too. More empathy, understanding,
absolutely.
Connecting, listening, not to respond, but to understand, and allowing your team to understand they're worthy, not just to allow them to feel worthy, but to make sure that they know they're worthy. And then to, make sure that you do it the right way, like, where it's from the heart, like you talked about. So it's a great reminder.
My dream is, Mike, that parents would read this book first because it helped them instill worthiness. What better way to teach worthiness than to model it? Yeah.
The word that I was thinking of, and you just made me think of it, is authentic. Model it authentically.
Authentic, absolutely.
And our kids know, like, if we're being baloney or if we're authentic, like our kids will smell that out in 2 seconds. So read the book, connect with it, and then authentically roll it out into your life, right? And I look forward to it. I'm going to order it immediately and I like to have the paperback. I know you sent me the digital version, but I love to mark it up, highlight it, reread it. Then I just go back and read only the highlights the second time, and then it really instills in my brain. Was there anything about the neuroplasticity side of this conversation you wanted to add where, people can rewire their brains, and what our brain is capable of doing is so much more than what people realize?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up before we close. So I keep on saying the greatness is within, the power is within. Mm-hmm. So no matter what you've experienced up till now, no matter your age, and what I found is the younger you are when you do this, the quicker you can rewire your brain. If you're 40 years old and you're rewiring your brain along a lot of negative beliefs you've been carrying, it's going to take a little bit longer, or 50 years old, or if you had a lot of trauma. Yeah. But yes, we can rewire our brain, and it's done through repetition. And it's done through getting very clear statements. And the other thing based on neuroscience is the way we create new. And this is what is a little different from therapy. And again, a lot of therapists have endorsed my book. A lot of my friends are therapists. We all interconnect. But the way you rewire your brain is through clear intention plus elevated emotion is how you get a new outcome. So what most people fail to do, or a lot of people fail to do, is don't get clear on their intention. So for example, even when I gave the example of being a best-selling author versus a wealthy author, wealthy was clear. I don't care if my name is in stars. I care that I can serve, okay? I got really clear on that distinction. Or even on a relationship, you know, the word reciprocity is a key, for me, intention. But the elevated emotion, this is really key to neuroscience and all of it. If you're, especially now, this is my biggest concern for the next generation that had so much negativity thrown at them everywhere, right? You don't know the elevated emotion. You know fear, anger, despair, right? From all the media and all the external circumstances. So to create anew, you need the elevated emotions of joy, wonder, awe, excitement. And another thing that's really important is excitement and fear feel the same in the body. So when you feel like your body's a little anxious, you can ask, am I excited or am I scared? Because you might be moving forward in excitement and not knowing it because it feels the same as fear. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I would love every single school, every guidance counselor, every teacher, every parent to teach kids to identify their elevated emotions. And yes, we can all go down, we can hit a downward spiral, but what is the elevated emotion you can go forward in? What are you excited about? What lights you up? And again, the clear intention plus the elevated emotion is how we get the outcome we want. And it's really challenging right now with all that's coming at us to focus on that. But we're not going to change our life story by focusing on circumstances.
Yeah, it's so good. Again, the big takeaway I have here about worthiness is that it's already within. We don't need any external factors.
Yes.
Somebody doesn't have to hand us the keys or give us approval. We have it. We're born with it. Born worthy. What a great conversation today. I'm excited to read your book. And I think anybody tuning in right now is excited and they're probably already clicking on and ordering it. I always end every episode in gratitude.
Thank you, Mike.
Before we do that, I always say,
yes.
Be great and be grateful. You are great at what you do. I want you to know this. I didn't intend or plan on having this part of the conversation with you, but I'm just reflecting on it in the moment. You've made me feel worthy, unintentionally or probably intentionally in the past. Like in some of our text messages, I know you worked with Social Chameleon for a period of time, and you always showed me gratitude. And when you check in on me from time to time, that made me feel worthy. Like she cares, she wants to know what I'm doing. There's empathy there. So I appreciate you. You're someone who I'm really grateful to have as a friend and as someone who can lead me to great things as a parent through your book and just through your teachings. And I love having you on the show now for the second time, because there's so much I can learn from you just in conversation. But the book obviously delivers. This conversation was great for an hour, but the book is it's going to have all the meat there. So I'm really excited about it. So grateful for you being on the show.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And something I want to remind everybody to do is just be more kind to one another. There's a lot of heat right now,
absolutely,
politically, and us versus them mentality in the country right now. I don't want to hear any of it. I don't talk about any of that on the show. One thing that everybody can do is be kind. So just a reminder, everybody, be kind to one another. Love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Gail, you're the best. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate it today. Thank you.
Keep on moving on.